curious from your standpoint, going from you're on the college side of things, college scouting director in Denver, to now transitioning to your new job, how that's going.
Yeah, it's been great. This is a great opportunity for me to kind of to grow a little bit and push my boundaries. I was in that role in Denver for about 9 years, and I was really excited about the opportunity to learn more about the process and be exposed to some things that I wasn't there. I was always involved in evaluating players, but to get a little bit more involved in the day-to-day stuff on the roster building and team management, those kind of things. So it's been going great so far. Really excited about it, and it's a good challenge for me, and kind of got me reignited a little bit. Pretty excited. Feel a little bit younger than I was. So so far so good.
Talking about being reunited, obviously you're back with Josh Svitek. How much does that decision, kind of, fuel your decisions in terms of, having a familiar face in the building that's kind of helps you come over here?
That definitely made that was one of the things that made the opportunity appealing. Spy and I, we were together in Denver. Always had a good relationship, always had a friendship, and always kind of viewed players the same way, valued the same qualities in players, always enjoyed talking players. So, after the draft, when the opportunity came up, it's a small family in the football world anyway. But when you get an opportunity, at a revered organization like this, and to come and support one of your friends in a role like that, it's a pretty unique.
What have you learned from John the most in your new job?
I really admire John's conviction and his clear vision on what he values in players, and just kind of reinforcing the conviction that I have on some of those same things. That confidence. I think he's very motivated to locate and develop certain qualities in players, and I think he's very hard fast in his beliefs, and I think that kind of rubs off and gives you confidence in your own. So it's been great.
Brian Q. Myers from Raider Nation Radio 920. What is the collaboration like, especially this time of year when you're getting ready down to roster cut downs between you, Spytek, Pete Carroll, just that collaboration?
Yeah, it's been very collaborative so far. Coach Carroll and Spy, they talk daily on everything. We have meetings where everyone is encouraged to kind of share their views. We watch the practice film together as a personnel staff. We have conversations. We have a chance to interact with the coaches and kind of hear their feel, so that we kind of understand, maybe what we're asking certain players, certain positions to do. And then there's just a lot of conversation, in both departments. And then, Spy and, Coach Carroll, they come together, and, we're just trying to create all the information, get all the different perspectives on players, and then kind of narrow the focus and give those guys the right information, so that when it's time to make a decision, that they can make the decision that's best for us.
Brian, being almost through training camp now and having a couple of preseason games on tape, what's your kind of overall impression of the rookie class so far?
Yeah, I've been really encouraged with the rookie class. I didn't join until after the draft, but my last role was as college director in Denver, so I had a pretty good idea about most of the players that were selected. And what's exciting is, not just the draft picks, but even some of the the undrafted free agents. You've had a chance to see them exhibit those qualities that got them this opportunity to be here. And then, with the culture of competitiveness, that's kind of the central theme, that Coach Carroll, really embodies and really pushes. It's given all those guys opportunity on the field. So I think the positive thing right now is you're seeing evidence of, every player is kind of showing what got them this opportunity. There hasn't been any really one that has shrunk from it. You're starting to see it all, and part of that is that confidence and belief that Coach Carroll instills in the organization.
Maybe a position group that you think you might have the biggest challenge next week in trying to make in terms of making a decision?
I don't think there's a single position group like that. I think the whole roster it's really competitive right now. So I think, every position for those last couple of spots, there's a lot of competition for it, and we kind of take the opportunity to evaluate every exposure. So every practice, every game that we have from now until cut down day is important for us. We want to see and provide as many opportunities for each of those players to compete as we can. So it's hard to single out one position group, but I can tell you that the competition for those roster spots on the back end there, it's going to go right down to the wire.
As this group of 91 are they making it a difficult decision for you guys?
Yeah, there's always going to be difficult decisions, but this group has been, and we're still, we're in year one here, with Coach Carroll and with Spy, and we're still kind of learning each other and the philosophies and those kind of things. So I think, as the players are learning what they're being asked to do, we're learning what they're being asked to do, and we're all learning each other. So that adds a little something to it. But what I really appreciate, what makes it easier to have these evaluations is, you guys have been out to practice. Our practice tempo and everything it's great. It's a very competitive atmosphere. So that makes our job a little bit easier when we're trying to evaluate these guys.
When you're roster building, how difficult is it when you're looking at two guys and one may be better for today, but one may be better down the road? Thinking about this year, obviously, but having an eye on the future.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to balance that, what's their projected ceiling versus where they are right now. But I think you have to, you have to constantly eval everyone day by day. Like, you take every practice, and you'll have a wide vision and a narrow vision of the player, right? So you kind of see how that from day to day changes, and may change the overall perspective. But at the end of the day, when it's time to make the roster moves, we'll try to provide the information so that when the decisions are made, it's best for the Raiders right now, at that time.
You mentioned that for a decade now, you and John have been aligned on the qualities you look for in players. What are some of those qualities, if you could share any?
Smart, tough, natural football players that are competitive and that they have the stamina to sustain that competitiveness throughout practice, throughout games, throughout the season. I really gravitate to those type of players. I think that they're able to sustain and enhance the culture, especially the culture that we're trying to build here. It's pretty cool to see the alignment in core values that Coach Carroll and Spy have, and even with the ownership group, with Mr. Davis and Tom Brady and, Egon Durbin and Michael Meldman. Like, we kind of have a chance to, it feels like there's a really good aligned vision right now for the type of player and the type of organization, the type of team that we want here.
When you look back, when you first met Spy, what image is in your mind? Or is he the same guy he is now? Has he evolved since then?
No, he's 100%. He's 100% the same guy he is now. Yeah, it's pretty. It's a pretty special experience for me to have a chance to have this opportunity to be here and support him in this role, to have this role myself and support him in his role, and to still be able to have some of the same conversations that we had back then. And we know, our families know each other. It's a great environment. I feel really fortunate for sure.
Curious what your evaluation last year of Brock Bowers was. I know in Denver you guys had, I think, the pick right before the Raiders, and obviously took the quarterback.
Yeah.
I can imagine, he was in those conversations. What was your evaluation of him?
Oh yeah, he's a really good football player. We felt that way coming out, and that he was a positioned player. I was with Coach Payton there. He covets that kind of player at that position, and so we spent a lot of time talking about Brock, and we had him very high on the board. He went with the quarterback in that situation, but yeah, there was a lot of love for him in that building as well, and it's been fun to be here and be on this side of it. Now I'm kind of excited to be on this sideline when I get to watch Brock compete, watch Max compete, as opposed to being on the other sideline. So.
That being said, kind of being on the other side, obviously completely different place, but what do you think are some things and philosophies that you can take from Denver that you feel can transfer over here to build the same winning traditions?
I think what's helpful about my experience in Denver is, there was a time there where there was turnover there. There were quite a few different head coaches. I had a chance to come in and learn, from John Elway, from Matt Russell, who's a longtime personnel executive. And then George Payton came in a few years ago, and have kind of been a part of that roster kind of being rebuilt over the last few years. So, kind of seeing some of the processes that they do, it really helped me understand the best way to organize certain things to make it a little easier when it's time to make the decision on certain players. So I think the exposure I've had to some of those processes and how they're done is kind of what I'm trying to help right now with, working closely with Brandon Hunt and Ben Chester and Brandon Jurgen and Anthony Patch, the rest of the personnel department, so that, Spy's got a big job. He's got a lot going on, and we want to make sure that we have everything organized and have strong opinions on things so that we can present it to him in a way that can make the process as efficient as possible. And I think having gone through kind of those roster transitions in Denver, it exposed me to a couple different philosophies and a couple different styles. So kind of able to create some thoughts on that and then kind of put that together with everybody's experiences that they've had. Because we've got a pretty diverse amount of experience in our personnel office right now, that guys have been in a lot of different places that have had a lot of success. So we kind of spent a lot of the off season putting that process together, trying to find our process that worked best for us. And that's probably what I took the most from there, yeah.
When I first covered John, he was an intern with the Lions, and he was even known then as an intern as very detail oriented. A, are you detail oriented? And B, if you are or working for one who is, how much information literally, because he was known as just a massive consumer of it, is that in learning to do that?
I mean, Spy can certainly process a lot of information, and his recall is very good. I'm a very detailed person. I'm a note taker. I'm a schedule maker. So I spend a lot of time making sure that my day is organized, that when I have time with Spy, that I'm ready to present the information that he needs to have. So the organization part of it, I think, is important because now we have so much information that we can gather, and we're utilizing analytics and all these different things to gain as much information as possible. Our scouting department, we want to have, it's never too much, right? We want to have all the information we can. Then it's up for us to kind of filter it down and put it in a presentable fashion so that we can get the important bits of information to them.
We talk about the evaluations of looking at your own roster, but there's also 31 other teams that are going to be cutting down rosters as well. How do you kind of not spread it too thin, but be able to evaluate who's out there available as well?
Yeah, we have a process for that. Again, Brandon Hunt and Ben Chester and the pro staff, we kind of break up the teams, and everybody's assigned different teams, and we've got an eye on all those preseason games as they come in, and constantly kind of monitoring all those situations, because our goal is to put the best roster we can. So we're going to explore every option there is. Starts with knowing our roster first to understand where our strengths and deficiencies are, or where we think we can get better. But I was taught early in my career that the most important evaluation is self-evaluation. So we start here, we spend a lot of our time here, but we also exhaust every resource we can to kind of see what we think potentially could be available.
Is there any, real quick follow-up, is there any kind of emphasis on maybe looking at a team where you feel like, hey, they draft really well? They always bring in really talented players. Let's focus in on them to see who they might let go.
Yeah, I mean, we try to spend, we focus the same amount of detail on every potential claim or every roster. But naturally you recognize there's certain teams that maybe you agree with their philosophy or it aligns a little closer with what yours is. And some teams are deeper than others, so you have ideas on that. But it's all kind of speculation right now because a lot of things happen. Even in this last week of the preseason, things change quickly. So we kind of have to keep that focus wide right now to make sure we're kind of collecting everything, and it'll start to focus up and narrow as the weekend goes on.
Kind of talking about analytics there, and compiling all that data. How do you go about marrying that with the good old fashioned eye test of trusting what you see? What's that balance like between putting those together?
Yeah, I think so I coached for a while, and analytics wasn't as big of a part of it then when I was doing that. So naturally I was always kind of an eye test guy, but there's so much information available, and it's so much more efficiently evaluated, and the applications for it are almost endless. We've got a great team upstairs. They go through so much information that it would take us, days to do, and they do it in minutes, and then really refine the presentation. So I think the analytics stuff, one, it's great for maybe identifying people that maybe are over or undervalued. It's also great for, it is a collaborative process here. There's a lot of conversation about player. It also is great about creating conversations on players that maybe we go over too quickly. And identifying targets that maybe we're not focusing on enough. So it's just another piece of that puzzle. I would say that that's something in the last several years that I've really grown to appreciate, and it can be a valuable tool, absolutely.
What have been your impressions of the current state of the cornerback room?
I mean, I think I've been pretty happy so far. I mean, it's early in the process right now. I think the off season has been good. I think you can see, you know, it's exciting. Gino's done well. Aiden's been competitive. I think Cam has shown, you know, some of the qualities that enabled him to get picked in the draft. I think, you know, that competition, like every other position room, you know, we're evaluating every day.
Oh, my bad, I mean cornerbacks.
Oh, cornerback.
Yeah, my bad.
I mean, it's kind of the same. That room is very competitive as well. I mean, I would say, you know, you look at across our team, almost every position, you know, there's hotly contested battles. I think the cornerback room is one of those rooms where, you know, we're trying to find the right mix right now, but there's a lot of players in there that are playing well. I think it's been very competitive. And, you know, we'll kind of see. This is going to be a big week to finish out practice this week, that last preseason game, and kind of see how that position room is going to fall.
Along those lines, you guys did trade away Jacorian. Was there just an identification in the process he wasn't maybe the right fit? And I guess what went into that process with that trade?
No, I mean, that's probably a better question for the GM, you know, just trying to do the best thing we can for the organization. That's a better question for John.
Pete Carroll made 284 transactions his first year in Seattle as he kind of redid the roster. I don't think anybody expects that many here, but is that exciting for you and your staff, or is that more like a headache of, man, that's every day that's something else going on?
No, I think it's, you know, to have the willingness, you know, to just constantly be looking for ways to improve and create competition, and, you know, if it's necessary, yeah, I'm all in on that. You know, now if we don't feel there's a way to continually bring in competition or improve the roster that way, I mean, that's pretty wild, though. That's a big number. But, you know, we're going to be ready to do whatever it takes to kind of keep that culture going and keep the competitiveness going and try to find the best fit we can here.
This might be a silly question, but you talked about just the volume and efficiency of information these days. Like, when you look back early in your career, are there any things that stick out in terms of the most inefficient processes? Like, were you carrying thumb drives and losing them? Like, I don't know, just what do you remember about?
Oh, no, my first year scouting, I mean, I was carrying around a big 3-ring binder full of papers, you know, and it's a lot more efficient now. Now you got, you know, your iPad with OneNote on it or whatever system you use, and it's a lot easier, a lot more efficient, and, you know, it's easier to find information from the past that you have. You don't have to go through boxes. You know, we just moved, and you know, my wife's not super thrilled about the boxes of VHS tapes and old notebooks I have from coaching and early scouting. So yeah, the efficiency it's nice now. The technology's helped a lot. I'm not always a big fan of the technology, but yeah, it's helpful for sure.
You were discussing analytics, and you know, as you've gone through the process, more and more people have embraced it, and others have, you know, there are people that still don't fully buy in that. Like, how much of, as you go into a new place, is it determining like how much people want to know about it, how much people want to hear about it, how receptive they are? Like, is there a balance of just trying to determine how much to really use them and how much to let people know what you're learning from them?
That's probably more of a, you know, personal preference, organization, or, you know, department to department. I just feel like, you know, like we were saying earlier, the more information, the better. And there's, you know, if it's out there, why not utilize it? You know, now I think some teams are better than others as far as, you know, not just collecting the information, but then how do we disseminate it and organize it and present it in a certain way. But I think, to me, you know, the way the world is now and the way it's probably always been, you got to have that constant growth mindset of looking to take advantage of whatever can be there. And, you know, I've learned a lot about about analytics in the last few years, to where it wasn't something I was exposed to. And, you know, the value of it is commensurate with how much effort you want to put into it and learn about it. Like, you can get a lot of value from it for sure. So I think it's probably more of a preference, but I think you got to be at the forefront of it or you're going to fall behind.